Flames burst from the Atlanta Federal Penitentiary. Sirens howled. Cuban detainees screamed for freedom as smoke poured from shattered windows. Carlos stood on a railing with fire in his eyes, shouting, "They will hear us tonight." Days earlier, news spread to the cells. Cuba would take them back. Faces went pale. Carlos whispered, "They can't send us there." Luis answered quietly, "They already did." In the rec room, a TV announced the deportations. Silence. Then a chair smashed the screen. Sparks flew. Guards rushed in as men shouted, "We'd rather die here." That night, whispers filled the cells. Metal scraped. Tools were hidden. Luis murmured, "Tomorrow we make them listen." Carlos stared at the ceiling, heart pounding. Lunch turned tense. A guard shouted, "Back in line." A detainee slammed his tray to the floor. Clang. Trays flew, voices exploded, and chaos began. Alarms blared. Someone stole keys. Cell doors popped open one after another. Hundreds roared, "Libertad!" Smoke rose as the riot spread fast. Hostages were forced to hold a white sheet. "We will not go back to Cuba." Cameras outside caught every second. For a moment, even the fire went quiet. Midnight. Explosions from the kitchen shook the ground. Carlos tried to reach the East Hall, but a burning beam crashed down, trapping him behind the flames. Through the fire, Carlos saw a figure dragging a hostage deeper inside. "Wait!" he shouted, coughing in the smoke. But the man disappeared into blaze. The walls groaned. Alarms faded. Carlos stood alone in the glow of burning light, realizing someone inside the riot had their own deadly plan. Carlos coughed as the flames roared around him. Smoke burned his lungs and his vision blurred. The hallway he had come through was gone. Only fire and screams behind him. Through the orange glow, Carlos saw nothing but fire. The man who had dragged the hostage was gone. "Luis!" he yelled, his voice cracking. No answer. He turned and saw a vent half melted by heat. Crawling low, he pushed through it, choking on smoke. Metal burned his palms, but it was the only way out. He dropped into the lower block, quiet, dark, and flooded. Water from broken sprinklers mixed with ash. Somewhere above, boots ran, metal clanged. From the corner came a weak voice, a guard's whisper. "Help, please." Carlos froze. His heart pounded. He could run, or help, against every instinct. Carlos pulled the guard up by the arm. "Quiet," he said. "They'll hear us." Shadows moved at the end of the corridor. 2 inmates carrying pipes. Carlos ducked into a laundry room with the guard, holding his breath. The men passed by, laughing, unaware. One stopped and sniffed the air. "Smoke's getting bad," he said. "Then move on." Carlos exhaled quietly. Carlos spotted a maintenance door half open. He led the guard inside, a narrow tunnel lined with pipes. "This goes to the kitchen," he whispered. Inside the tunnel, voices echoed, distant shouts in Spanish. "Encuentralo!" Find him. Someone was looking for him. Carlos froze when he heard a familiar voice, Luis's. "Don't come here," it yelled faintly through the tunnel. "They'll kill him." Carlos realized the hostage wasn't random. Whoever took him wanted leverage, a bargaining chip. And Luis was in the middle of it. Outside the walls, federal agents lined up trucks. Reporters shouted questions. "Is anyone alive inside?" one asked. The FBI negotiator adjusted his headset. "This is Special Agent Morris." The negotiator said into the loudspeaker, "We're here to talk." Inside, the inmates laughed. "They'll talk when they fear us," one sneered. Carlos crept toward a broken vent near the kitchen. Through the gap, he saw Luis, tied up, held by 3 men. One was the shadow from before. The shadow spoke softly. "We'll use the guard. Then maybe they'll listen." His voice was calm, too calm. Carlos realized this man wasn't just part of the riot. He was controlling it. The man told the group to prepare a message for the FBI. If they try to enter, the guard dies first. Others nodded in silence. Carlos whispered to the wounded guard beside him, "We have to get him out. Luis doesn't deserve this." The guard nodded weakly. Upstairs, another explosion rocked the ceiling. Debris fell. Inmates screamed. Carlos used the noise to slip out of the tunnel unnoticed. He reached the kitchen door, locked. He searched frantically and found a broken metal rod. Come on, he muttered, prying it open. The door gave way. Inside, the shadowy man turned sharply. You, he said, eyes narrowing. Carlos froze, realizing he'd been seen. Carlos lunged forward, trying to pull Luis free. A fight broke out, metal clanged, fists flew. The guard behind Carlos shouted, "Run!" Outside, a single gunshot echoed. The crowd gasped. Agents ducked behind cars. Inside, Carlos froze as the sound reached him. Someone had fired, but who? The fight stopped. Everyone turned toward the sound. On the ground lay one of the rioters, bleeding. The room went silent, except for dripping water. In the confusion, Carlos grabbed Luis's arm. "Move!" he shouted. Together they ran toward a storage corridor behind the kitchen. "Stop them!" someone yelled behind. Heavy footsteps followed. Luis and Carlos ran through puddles and steam, searching for a way out. As they caught their breath, Luis looked at Carlos. "They wanted the guard," he said. "That man, he's planning something worse." "Who is he?" Carlos asked. Luis hesitated. "They call him El Juez, the judge. He decides who lives and dies." Luis explained quickly. El Juez had led gangs inside for years, waiting for a moment like this. The riot wasn't chaos. It was his plan. Carlos looked at the flames spreading outside the room. "He's not trying to escape," he said slowly. "He's trying to take over the whole prison." Outside, new sirens wailed. Armored vehicles rolled closer. Over loudspeakers, the FBI warned, "We will enter if the violence continues." Carlos looked at Luis. "If they break in now, everyone dies," he said. Before Luis could reply, another explosion ripped through the east wing, the loudest yet. The east wing exploded like thunder. Windows shattered across the yard. Carlos and Luis stood behind a wall as fire and dust filled the air. Ears ringing, Carlos crawled through debris. "Luis," he shouted. Smoke made it hard to breathe. Somewhere ahead, voices screamed for help. Outside the walls, FBI agents ducked behind vehicles. "We need medics now," one yelled. Floodlights lit the burning compound like daylight. Inmates ran in every direction. Some cried, some cheered. "They're coming!" a man yelled. Others grabbed weapons, ready for a final stand. Carlos found Luis pinned under broken pipes. "I'm fine," Luis gasped. Carlos pulled him free. "We need to stop El Juez before they storm in." From the shadows came a calm, steady voice. Too late for that. El Juez stepped out, face half lit by fire. "They'll pay for what they did." Luis limped forward. "You're killing your own people," he said. El Juez paused. "You think they ever cared about us?" he snapped. Through loudspeakers, a voice thundered, "You have 1 hour to surrender." The message echoed through the burning cell blocks. Half the inmates wanted to surrender. Half followed El Juez. "If we open that gate, they'll shoot us," someone cried. Fear ruled the air. Carlos turned to Luis. "If they won't surrender, we'll make them." Luis nodded weakly. "Let's end this." They crept toward the control room. Each step echoed on wet floors. Luis whispered, "He'll be guarding the switches." 2 guards rushed out, held hostage by El Juez's men. Carlos swung a pipe, knocking one down. The other fled shouting. They reached the heavy steel door, locked tight. Carlos smashed the keypad with his rod. Sparks flew, but the lock stayed shut. Luis grabbed a cut wire. "Back up," he said. He jammed it into the panel. The lights flickered, alarms screamed, and the door slid open. They burst in. El Juez stood by the main console with a pistol in his hand. "Drop it," Carlos shouted. El Juez smiled. "You're too late." On the screen behind him, prison blueprints glowed red. "If they breach the gates, I open the gas valves," El Juez said. "Everyone burns." Carlos stepped closer. "Don't do this." El Juez cocked the pistol. "Move 1 inch, and we all die as free men." Suddenly, Luis lunged. The gun fired, loud and sharp. El Juez stumbled back, hitting the control board. Sparks burst around them. Warning alarms blared. Gas valves open. A hiss filled the air. Carlos grabbed Luis. "We have to shut it down." Carlos spotted the master lever. Smoke thickened. He wrapped his shirt around his face and yanked it hard. The noise stopped. Silence. Behind him, El Juez collapsed to the floor, clutching his shoulder. He looked up at Carlos. "You should have let me finish it," he whispered. Carlos raised his hands and shouted through the hallway. "It's over. He's down." Inmates peek around corners, unsure what to believe. Outside, agents saw a white cloth wave from a window. "We've got movement." The gate opened and tactical teams advanced. Inside, prisoners dropped makeshift weapons. Smoke curled to the broken roof. The riot that had lasted days was finally ending. Inside, prisoners dropped makeshift weapons. Smoke curled to the broken roof. The riot that had lasted days was finally ending. Agents cuffed El Juez on a stretcher. He looked at Carlos and smiled faintly. "You stopped me today," he said, "but nothing changes." Morning light broke through the smoke. Helicopters hovered above the ruined prison. Reporters called it a miracle that more didn't die. Wrapped in a blanket, Carlos sat on the curb. Cameras flashed, but he stared blankly at the rising sun. "We just wanted to live," he whispered. As the gates closed behind him, the prison stood silent, black walls scarred by fire. For 11 days, the world watched the cry for freedom turn into chaos. And though peace returned, the memory of the Atlanta Federal Prison riot would never fade.